Hi class, so for my last presentation, I'm going to be doing it on serial killers. So what is a serial killer? A serial killer is typically a person who murders 3 or more people, usually in service of abnormal psychological gratification, with the murder taking place over more than a month and including a significant period of time between them. And it's also very similar to serial murder, which is the killing of 3 or more people over an extended period of time for personal gratification. So a stereotype that I did read in the book that I thought was very interesting for a serial killer is that they are ruthless, bloodthirsty sex monster who lives a Jekyll and Hyde existence, probably next door to you. So in a future part of the video, I am going to be going over what I do refer to Jekyll and Hyde. So most of these, well, this specific stereotype typically comes from TV shows or movies, etc. For example, I'm pretty sure most of us have seen like Criminal Minds, Law and Order, those type of shows. They do kind of show you that a serial killer is someone who you might have crossed paths with, someone that you might know, typical things like that. But not all serial killers are motivated by sex, and not all of them violate their victims. So in the next part of the video, I am going to go over how some serial killers do choose their victims. So some serial killers seek to kill a certain victim, and others kill a certain victim just because they're an easy target. They can either commit the murder in the victim's home, or they can move across from city, even state, to commit the murder of different victims. So there is, of course, there can be female serial killers and there can be male serial killers. So I am going to go over some differences between the two. So male serial killers are, of course, the most common known type of serial killers. They use weapons or other means of physical violence to kill. Their motivation to kill is sexual gratification. Female serial killers are the least common type of serial killer. They kill by using poison or suffocation. Their motivation to kill is because they seek to get attention or money from the victim's insurance policy. So what many of you may not know is that there is 4 different types of serial killers. So there is power and control, visionary, mission, and hedonistic. So I am going to explain the differences and the motivations for each one of them. So power and control. Their motive to kill is because they get complete sexual gratification from the domination and humiliation of their victim. Visionary, their motive to kill is because they hear voices or see visions that tell them to kill certain types of people. Mission, their motive to kill is that they feel a need or duty to kill a certain victims that are like religious, prostitutes, etc., those type of people. Hedonistic, their motive to kill is because they feel pleasure out of torturing the victim. They take their time, making the victim suffer. So there really is typically no type of sentencing for a serial killer, but the judge will, of course, sentence the killer to murder, which can lead him or her to either getting life in prison or even the death penalty, which is like the electrical chair or the lethal thing drug, I believe, something like that. Which it kind of does depend on which state the crime was committed. So now I am going to go ahead and talk about 2 very famous known serial killers. One of them, of course, is Ted Bundy. I'm pretty sure we've all seen the Ted Bundy movie on Netflix or heard of him from school, etc., whatever. So he did murder 36 women, but there is other experts out there who do believe he may have murdered more than that. But of course, now him being dead, we may not know. We will not ever find out the truth. He was a handsome and charming guy, and that is how he did lure most of his woman victims. They wanted to help him out because he was handsome and charming. So that's how he got away with luring his women. He was sentenced to death by the electrical chair in Florida in 1978. And now I'm gonna go ahead and talk about John Wayne Gacy, who is also known as Jekyll and Hyde. Like I did mention earlier, from the stereotype, most people believe that it's like that. He is also known as the killer clown. So his murder was, he did murder 33 young teenage boys and young men. Most of his murders took place in his own home, which was in Norwood Park in a ranch house. And his way of luring his young boy victims was promising them construction work and that they were going to get paid and other stuff like that. And instead what he did was he would sexually assault them and then eventually ended up murdering them. He was in prison for a while and eventually he died on May 10th, 1994 by the lethal injection. Thank you. I am going to talk about another last famous one, which is Jeffrey Dahmer, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So he murdered 17 young boys between the years of 1978 and 1991. He as well selected his victims, but he made sure to carefully select them by making sure that they had a criminal background or were criminals, so that when they noticed that they went missing, he wouldn't like really be caught. And just like the killer clown previous one, he as well lured them by bringing them into their home, promising them something certain, which ended up being that they were just gonna get murdered and killed. So he lured them into his home by promising them money or sex. Oh, and by the way, he did make sure sex because he made sure that the young men were typically African American gay men. So that's how he lured them into his home and killed them, by offering them money and or sex or both. Then he strangled them to death, and after killing them, that's when he engaged in sexual intercourse with their bodies, and he took pictures of their naked bodies, and those were his type of souvenirs for him to keep. Yeah. So actually, one last famous serial killer that I did want to talk about is Pedro Alonso Lopez. He is known for murdering 110 young women. He would lure his victims to remote areas where he committed rape and murder. When he was caught, he did plead guilty, and he did only serve 14 years in prison.